What is going on, guys? Today we are going to talk about another fragrance from the house of Santa Maria Novella. Strap up.
Okay, dinner for two. I watch that head move side to side as I let this in into the room. You were on top, let's connect minds. Trying to get into a mood. We gon' be fine. Close up the blinds, no rush. Finish the food.
All right. Welcome to the scent bubble. I am your host for the evening, despite how bright it is in this room and how many cameras and lights are on me right now. From the house of Santa Maria Novella, this is Quercia, I believe is how you pronounce it. If I'm botching that, I'm so sorry. You guys can look it up. Take your screenshots now. Okay, so please, again, disclaimer, if you haven't already, please check out my introduction, brief history lesson on this house, because this is a kind of heritage house and might quite possibly be one of the oldest still living and functioning brand houses in history as it relates to perfumery. Beautiful story to this house, and that story impacts kind of the approach to how this house does perfumery. And you might want to know that if you're interested in their fragrances, because it will inform and curate your navigation of this house and their fragrances. So without further ado, let's crack open Quercia. This is an eau de parfum concentration for men and women. And I see a tree on the front, so I'm guessing woody, fragrant, maybe fougere, maybe aromatic woody. Let's see what we're dealing with. You guys know I never deal with presentations. I could care less. Yeah, it looks cool. As a collector, I'm not fascinated with brands' presentations, but maybe if they all looked as beautiful as this, maybe I might put them up. I can't really appreciate them. I have too many bottles. I would need a library to really... I would have to work in my office 360 degrees, which it already, if you guys can see the background, it's already a zoo in my office. Maybe one day I'll approach it more with a 360 degree kind of museum feel. You know, I'm in the arts. I used to be a teacher of history and things of the different art practices and mediums. So maybe that's a story for a different day. I do save all of my boxes, not for any reason other than if I was to sell them or trade them, I want people to be able to open the fragrance up with the original packaging. So if you go in my garage, there are buckets and buckets and buckets of box presentations. Anyways, dang SB, it's already 3 minutes into the VOD. Spray the dang fragrance and give us initial thoughts. Okay, your wish is my command. Just blasted the skin and already I get a greenness. So hit the arm. We're going to let that dry down. Again, this is eau de parfum concentration. It says for men and women, but I'm going to tell you right now, this one feels, it's trying to go fougere. Green. It's trying to go green. So can women wear green? Absolutely. But there is a bit of a stutter step a woman might do in going towards green scents, because the average woman will not go towards a fragrance this green. As a woman, you would have to be very kind of self-conscious and aware of your own self-creativity and I don't care what people thinkness. And you would have to be somebody who's not intimidated by scent profiles that through history and culture have traditionally been seen as masculine touches. If you're okay with that, then this absolutely could be for you. And I like stuff like that, because for me, it's like, well, hey, go ahead, shorty, put it on. I want to see how you smell with it, because, you know, it's always fun to be challenged in your thinking and your perception. And some things that ways in which we view and see the world kind of cement themselves in our minds in a way where we form opinions and ideologies that just simply aren't true. They're for the time, and then you grow and evolve and realize, oh, wow, that was very circumstantial, or that was just a moment in time, but there is no truth to extract from that. That's just kind of universally true. And with culture, that happens a lot, even as it relates to the matching and pairing of scent profiles in perfumery with gender. All that nonsense out of the window. Let's smell this. Super woody. On test strip, I get a super like robust, ballsy, woody base with a blast of just this aromatic, soft, sharp, meaning sharp with but soft edges, almost like a blunted knife of greenery. There's something dark and mysterious in the back of this. Like a weight and a scent that feels very much dark earth, almost like the oud of the earth. Like, you know, so oud kind of, it can be funky. It can have this clean woodiness. It could even be sweet, you know, but it just kind of, when I think about fragrances like oud for greatness, you know, it just kind of has this mystery weight behind it. There's a note in here that isn't oud at all, but I'm just saying similarly to oud, it's like the secret ingredient of the earth or something that just kind of has this mystery scent in the back that almost tints it in all this fresh brightness that the green has with kind of like a dark wood, you know, like a dark walnut wood is like the color picture I see in my mind. It's like a ton of greenery over like a dark wood. It's very airy and crisp on the test strip with a good amount of weight in the base. On skin though, it's like dainty and pretty in terms of like the brightness and the crispness, but there is this mystery weight and substance behind it that just tinges the green to it sits all of that green down into this mystery wood base. You know, you almost picture like, you know, if you have a wooden table that was like cut out of a really exotic piece of wood and there's this just like dark lacquer finish over top of it. I'm going to guess it's patchouli. It's like a patchouli wood with all this like pretty green, soft, sharp edge blast just laying on it. Almost like this, you know, I know there's vetiver in here just because I'm so vetiver trained. And vetiver doesn't always smell one way. You guys have heard me say this a million times. I know you have. You know, vetiver can be, you know, earthy, inky, woody, soapy, clean, grassy, hay-like, you know, resinous. It can be rendered all kinds of different ways, but nonetheless, I spotted a mile away here. But it's handled so much differently where I think the average person would never know vetiver's in here. Man, there's a profile being glued together by all these notes that I'm not too familiar with. I'd be interested to see what the note is. Like, my heart tells me, like, I don't know, it's kind of this like petitgrainy, greeny, mysterious dark oak type of, or walnut wood, or I don't know, like there's something outer worldly in this very earthy concoction. In terms of what it feels like on my skin, it's very unique, very, 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 very unique. The green blast initially that kind of is in the air, and initially, this is a scent of for connoisseurs and unique individuals who are exploring the world. Because I think the average person would associate this with kind of this either a pine greenness or a green soap or a kind of alpine green, you know, that fragrant tree that you stick in your car after you get a car wash. Those are the kinds of associations this profile kind of opens with. But man, does it sit down into something like totally different for me. Okay, enough of the talking. It just, I'm really enjoying exploring this, but I can tell that for you guys who can't smell this, and I'm trying to use my words to get you to smell this, you know, again, 3.8 out of 5, but only 83 votes. But as you can see, this is what I would qualify as like a kind of not carnivore, connoisseur scent. This is for a very few select individuals. I think any man that's a fan of the fougere category at all would love the intrigue of a scent like this. I don't know about practicality and use case, but this is for people who enjoy scents because of scent's sake and can appreciate it, not necessarily have to have a fragrance for a practical purpose. And for that reason, I think it would only gravitate towards very kind of artsy, exploratory, adventurous women who are mature. Because I think even a young girl couldn't appreciate a profile like this. This is a mature woman who is very much in tune with her artistic and adventurous self as it relates to perfumery and is into the exploration of scent and what it can do. Because I do think that if you can get past a lot of cultural and gender bias and just be one with yourself, some women would really gravitate towards this just kind of as a art piece, not necessarily thinking of it in terms of I would wear it here or I would wear it there. I would definitely wear this outdoors. Inside, I would be very soft with the trigger. Anyways, I'm very happy to smell a scent like this because in the fougere category, I've never smelled a scent profile like this at all. Quercia Eau de Parfum captures the serene refuge created by sunlight filtering through branches of century-old oaks. Oh, I do believe that that's what Quercia means, is like oak tree or something like that. This fragrance pays homage to the imposing oak tree of the Medicean Villa di Castello, symbolizing strength and longevity. It combines deep, rich, woody notes that evoke a majesty of oak, creating an intense, long-lasting olfactory experience. The aromatic, woody notes make this fragrance warm and enveloping, contributing to a feeling of strength, elegance, and self-confidence. Okay, let's move down. The fragrance definitely, I'm glad they went with the green, bottle here because it definitely smells like it looks. And it's the lavender that's throwing me off because I'm so used to this kind of beautiful brush of lavender as it relates to like citruses and even like things like tobacco. Oftentimes will have like a bergamot and a lavender note, honey. You think of Lamal elixir, it's kind of got a tobacco vanille with a lavender brush. But when lavender is put up against this strong oak vetiver patchouli, which is essentially like an above ground and underground group of raw materials, and then that gets a lavender brush, it comes off very much darker and has a sweetness, right? Because it's such a dry, woody experience that the patchouli kind of has this moist green feel. And then I'm certain there's more notes than this in this fragrance that are listed in the actual composition. But yeah, the lavender, it creates this like almost how geranium does sometimes. It creates this this slightly mysterious sweet brush over the woody greenness, and the green really calms down and it becomes predominantly woody for me. That oak is just totally there. I think a lot of people again wouldn't recognize the vetiver because this feels like a lavender woody fragrance. The patchouli and the vetiver are more so tinting the character of this fragrance. So again, we don't know what style of vetiver we're getting here because the lavender and oak is just so pronounced, but it certainly is giving this very unique, soft to skin, under 2 feet of projection type of character that really sits down. What starts as this very green, bright blast, very fougere blast, almost wintergreen and lavender forward blast, sits down to a predominantly oak experience with this brush of like a sweet lavender, slightly mysterious, woody take. But the green is still in there. It's just kind of cigar rolled. Like the vetiver is the cigar paper and the patchouli is in the guts of that thing, just trying to burst out. Wears very close to skin. Let's see what the performance is like. A lot of people say it's very long-lasting and strong, but the majority of audience says that the longevity is long-lasting, with a few saying moderate. The sillage is very moderate. So it's more of a long-lasting fragrance inside of the 4 feet, I would say, of projection, but strong performing fragrance. And you'd know it if you wore this. Again, it's an Eau de Parfum concentration. And look at all the other green fragrances that it says it's like. Acqua di Parma's Quercia. Oh, Acqua di Parma has a Quercia? That's crazy. Interesting. I want to smell that. When I see the lemon and the moss and the cardamom and the petitgrain, like those are things that I felt like I smelled in Santa Maria Novellas anyway. Clive Christian, obviously. The new Prada Paradigm. Interesting. I know a lot of you guys, that's been tickling y'all's fancy, even though it got a freaking 3.52 out of 5. Y'all are still bragging it up. Interesting. Yeah. Anyways, okay, let's, I've been talking for 16 minutes on this. I don't want to make love to the track, even though I already have. Very unique scent, not blind buy worthy at all. Women, if you're artsy, if you're different, if you're unique, if you're above 30, put your nose on it. Go along for the ride. You'll be happy you did. Not necessarily meaning you'll buy it, but you'll be happy you smelled it. It's definitely an art piece in and of itself. Men, if you're into fougere, walk down this path because it offers something that you don't quite get in fougere. I hate to say fougere just because it's green and woody, but it is. I think when it dries down, it doesn't feel like how fougeres feel, not in a historical sense in terms of the tones of the early 2000s and 80s and 90s, but it's reimagined. This scent, I believe, came out in 2024. This is a very modern, off-beaten path twist to the fougere identity, because I think when it dries down, it doesn't quite remind me of fougere, but I am tied to it maybe by like a string. So I want to believe that you don't have to be into fougere to appreciate this as a man, but I think you truly do, just for the simple fact that a lot of fougeres are brash and aggressive. And this certainly in the opening has a very unique brashness. Even though it's soft edged, the scent profile is not going to be something super familiar where you're like, you're gonna be like, whoa, 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 what is this? That's the reaction when you smell it. And so for that reason, I think if you're into fougeres in any regard, even homages, and certain Acqua di Parmas and old school fougeres, you wouldn't be intimidated by a scent like this. But one thing I definitely will say is when you put it on, be somewhat generous and then let it dry down and just sit with it for like an hour to see if it really speaks to you. Because if you like it, there's not going to be a lot like it in your fragrance collection. And I do think the blend is incredibly smooth. If you can get past the intimidation of this fragrance, you have a very unique kind of modern twist on a fougere style with a lot of old school heritage in the juice, and it has a certain kind of timeless, nostalgic feel to it while not feeling old, but also not being super recognizable in the scent profile either. My score on this is, personally, I give it, see, I gotta be real here because, okay, I'm gonna revisit this later when I spend a lot more time in it as it relates to like my other fougeres and things like that, because I have vintage, modern, all that stuff. But for now, and I hate to give it this score because I think it deserves more credit, but just my heart in terms of what would be helpful for you guys as buyers and people interested in the house, I'm gonna give it a personal 8. And I think for people who are into fougeres, it could be an 8 or a 9. But I think just the general public of men would call this a 6 and below fragrance. Because I just don't even think most of you guys out there could even speak the language of a fragrance like this. You just simply wouldn't understand it. It's not a simple to understand panty dropper, and even in the fougere category, it doesn't have like kind of the modern clean citric brush that every fougere typically tends to have, or like the clean crisp aromatic formalness or anything like when you deal with greenery and just straight woods, you got to be built different to appreciate something like that. So I think the general public is going to call this a 6. And I think for me, for where it would sit in my collection, I consider it well above average because it's extremely unique. And I think over time, I'm going to call it a 9, but it's my 9. I think it'll be most people's 6 or 7. But for that reason, again, I think this is a connoisseur fragrance, and comparatively to Ambre, which we reviewed earlier, Ambre is way easier to understand. It has more of a modern connection to, in terms of profile, to stuff you're familiar with. This is off beaten path. So if you've got the balls to do it, ladies and men, go after it. But this is 30 and up territory, perhaps even 40 and up territory. Men who are into fougères, give it a shot. It still will be on the fence for you. Either love it for its uniqueness or hate it. Women, it'll be for a very select few. But if you do pair with it, I think it could just be almost a therapeutic, unique scent that could bring you some joy, you know? Occasions. I really don't know with a scent like this. I feel like it could be any season, any reason. I feel like you need a breeze with a scent like this, but you can't get too much of a breeze because then the scent will evaporate. It gets to skin scent territory pretty quickly, like inside of a 2-foot scent bubble, even though I've only sprayed it twice on my skin. This is a very close proximity scent. I don't imagine you getting more than a 3-foot projection out of this, but I imagine you inside of the 2-3 feet would get a lot of longevity from this. Like, I think this would be a slightly glorified skin scent pretty much all day, especially if you're a heavy sprayer like me. I might try remixing this, you know, like maybe throw some Vetiver Sensuelle from Mancera or Desert Rain on top of this just to give it a little more modern finish. But as a base, man, I could just see a lot of potential in something like this. And as a standalone scent, this is something I would want to be alone with or just outdoors with. It would bring a lot of peace and joy and just uniqueness that, you know, sometimes different is just exactly what you need. You need something you're not used to just evoke something out of you, and to know like there's just stuff you haven't tried before. So anyways, again, this was Santa Maria Novella's Quercia, and unisex fragrance for men and women. I do think it's male leaning, and either way, it's a very narrow road men and women would have to walk to appreciate something like this. But get your nose on it, bare minimum, because it will be a profile you haven't tried before. Again, retails around $300 for the 100 ml, I think. And I think you might be able to get a half size. I'm not sure, but either way, get your nose on it before you try it. You have any questions? Let me know in the comment section. Like, comment, and subscribe. More importantly, turn on that notification bell. Talk to me. I do talk back. Let me know if you've tried anything from this house, anything you recommend. And I'm looking forward to going through this sample set now that we've gone through the bottles. So take care. Hope you stay blessed. And until next time, peace.